my fellow comic book collectors, it's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is the Wednesday video where I answer your questions. Each Wednesday, people ask me a bunch of questions, and I answer them the following week. If you have a question you want to answer, just put it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer it. Let's get into it. First question comes from Robbie Josephs. What is your general opinion of the Bronze Age of comics? So I actually don't mind the Bronze Age. There's lots of really cool stuff that came out in the Bronze Age. As a collectible, though, I do see some downside to it, and I'll get into that. But overall, lots of cool stuff came out in the Bronze Age. It was kind of an interesting era because it was sort of where comics became mature in many ways. You had like the drug issues, they were much more serious or heavy-hitting topics that were dealt with in the Bronze Age. Also, you have the rise of the Bronze Age horror, so it's kind of a return to some of the Golden Age themes, which makes Bronze Age really a cool age. And you get a lot of cool characters that came out in the Bronze Age, like Wolverine and Punisher and like a whole bunch of really cool characters. So yeah, Bronze Age was a pretty cool era. Now, in terms of collecting though, the Bronze Age, though it has a lot of awesome stuff, that one of the problems with it was an era where people started saving their books. They actually understood collecting much better than they did in the earlier eras. People in the Golden Age didn't really have the wherewithal to save their books. Only a few did, and thus many Golden Age books got destroyed. Silver Age was a bit better, but by the Bronze Age, people were, fairly savvy in terms of collecting comic books, and there was a lot more established to collect. So as a result, a lot of this Bronze Age survived, and there's a lot more of it out there, almost too much of it out there, and that's why, in a way, the values are much less than they could be, and they're more impacted by any downturn in the market. So for me, I think Bronze Age is really cool. What you have to do with Bronze Age is if you pick your battles. So certain things are very volatile, like I would say some certain things like superhero books, very volatile because there's just so many of them that were out there. Things that were less collected in terms of saved and kept in pristine collection grades were more the cartoon books and the Bronze Age horror. Now getting those in high grade is actually a big deal, and that's where you can probably find some books that will hold their value much better than maybe some of the hero books will. Now, right now, all of it is undervalued, and I'll get into that in a later question that's somebody asked. So next question comes from Akuramas. I love that Starman. Have you shown it before? How big is Wolverine in Canada? So I just mentioned Wolverine just a second ago. Wolverine is huge in Canada. He's like a very popular character, just as popular as he is in the US. So even though he's a Canadian character, we don't get any more excited about him than maybe Americans would. The one thing that you do see more of, though, in Canada is, I think I even have a shirt that's like a Canada Day shirt that has Wolverine on it. So we do add a little bit of patriotism to Wolverine. But that's about it. That's about it. It's sort of questionable patriotism about it. So yeah, but we do like Wolverine. I think I can speak for most Canadians in that regard. The next one is, you mentioned you want to see the Starman. Here's the Starman. It is restored. It's a 3.5 restored. The restoration includes pieces added, glue, tear seals, and reinforced, right edge trimmed, centerfold married. It's like got a lot done to it. It's extensive C5. So a lot was done to this book. I didn't realize it was that bad, but it looks nice. So yeah, it presents quite well, even though it's a 3.5. So yeah, but yeah, I do love it. It's a great book. It's just it has a lot of restoration. Okay, next question comes from David Attiles, David Attiles. Will your first PSA slab purchase be a Golden Age book or from a different era, modern, copper, etc.? I was actually debating about buying just a PSA slab just to have a PSA slab. I think it would probably be a modern book because you can get modern PSA slabs fairly cheaply, almost less than the cost of grading a PSA slab. So I was looking for like 9.6s. I know it sounds weird because what was happening was a lot of people were kind of upset with PSA, and because they were submitting books that they thought were 9.8s and getting 9.6. And as a result, they would sell the book. Like they wouldn't even bother like normally with CGC, people just keep on submitting it until they get the 9.8. But with PSA, they weren't. And what they would do is they would just sell it cheaply. And so I was looking for those as targets of opportunity to pick up some high grade books, but underpriced. So I was looking at a couple PSA slabs, but I haven't picked up any yet so far. So, but it's probably going to be a modern book just because I'm really just trying to take advantage of a target of opportunity. Okay. Robbie Josephs asked again another question. What about high grade, top of the census books as investment copies for Fawcett? So I was mentioning in the previous video about Captain Marvel Adventures and Fawcett related books like Wiz Comics, Mary Marvel, Master Comics, Marvel Family, all those ones, and how a lot of them, there are a lot of them out there. Like that was my complaint about the Bronze Age. Well, it's also my complaint about Fawcett books. There's an amazing number of them available out there. They were just massively printed in the Golden Age. We're talking print runs of about 1 million comics. So just massive amounts of them being printed. And a lot of them survived. Not million, but, in the thousands. And as a result, with the popularity of the character being kind of waning, he's just not as recognized as like Superman or other characters that are more popular nowadays. They just don't sell for that much. Even in high grade, you can get like some of them, like the highest grade on the census. They are Golden Age books, so highest grade on census might be a 7.5, and you can still see them very affordable, which is kind of sad in a way. But what I found is with the Fawcett books is there's certain ones that do sell for quite a lot, and they're sort of like almost like it's not, you can't just get any generic Captain Marvel Adventures and expect it to be like a good investment, even if it's in high grade. But it's more about keys. And what I mean by keys is not like the standard first appearance or something like that. Because some even the first appearances, like first appearance of Tawny the Tiger, Talking Tiger, or Mr. Mind, really don't sell for that much. They're okay in terms of value, but not huge value. The ones that actually are bigger keys in terms of value are ones like some of the like Nazi covers, like the one where Captain Marvel is zapping Hitler with the truth ray. The one where it's like SWAT the Japs. Certain books are more valuable within the Captain Marvel Adventures run, and those ones are the ones that people are chasing after, and they seem to be the ones where there's some value there. Also, first appearance of Captain Marvel Jr. obviously is a big one. His first cover appearance, anything with like World War II related stuff goes for a little bit more. So that's where probably the best targets of investment are. Yeah, it's kind of a weird one. It's always good to have high grade copies. So if there's ever a swing where the market does shift, you'll find that the high grade ones will be good in the future. It's just a matter of whether or not Shazam, because he's now a DC character, will get the love that he did back in the Golden Age. So that's really what's going to happen there. Kevin Lambert wrote, Do you have many qualified CGC graded green label comics with the centerfold missing? I have a few, and I'll actually show you my collection of green label centerfold missing books. I have about, I'd say maybe about 20 or 30. No, not that many. Maybe less than that. I would say, like, not many green labels. I have maybe, I'd say 20 green labels in my collection altogether, and some are just missing random pages or coupons missing or something really trivial missing from them, or married covers is another thing. So I have I'd say about 20 green labels altogether in my collection, but ones with specifically the green label due to centerfold missing. I'm going to show you all the ones that I have. I have about 4 in my collection. I'm going to show you my entire collection. So these are all green labels because they're missing the centerfold. And that's what really a green label means. It's usually something that's missing from the comic. These are ones where they're missing the centerfold. This is actually a 2-staple comic. Usually it's the ones where it's a 1 staple that you kind of get the missing centerfolds, but also the World War II books. Generally, the staples that they used were a little bit subpar. Like they just didn't, they didn't go in deep enough, and the centerfold would often not be, like, it would just be clinging onto that centerfold, and often the centerfold would get loose and fall out. So that's probably what happened in this one. This is a World War II era book. It's from 1942, and it's Wings number 26. And it's also got a Hitler cameo in it. So nice Second World War comic. And then another one. This one is actually missing 2 wraps, center wraps. It's my Nellie the Nurse. Just a really nice presenting one. This was one I was kind of debating on, but I got it for such a great price because it is incomplete. And it presents really well, so I was kind of like, I might as well just go with it. And it's in the slab anyway, so you can't see the fact that it's missing those pages. But I just thought it was a really cute one. I like roller coaster covers, so that's another reason why I picked it up. I'll show you the back. It presents really nice. It's like really, really sharp copy, but it's missing the centerfold. So this one is from 1946. So I'm not sure what its excuse is, but it is missing the centerfold. Another one. This is another war era. 1943. This is my Plastic Man #1. Love this cover. I think this is a really cool book. Again, it's missing the centerfold. That's why it's a green label. Now, you'll actually get green labels up to a 3. If it's below a 3, generally what you'll get is 0.5 or like it'll say something about it where it's incomplete. But CGC doesn't give like 2.5 green labels usually, for example, unless it's married or has some signature or something like that. But yeah, so this is my Plastic Man #1. And then one more to show. One sec here, once I get those back in. Is my Miss America Comics #1. Also missing the centerfold. I just really like this one. I was super excited to get this one. So even though it's a incomplete book, I just always like this book. It's a really cool one. So Miss America #1. It's like a Ken Bald cover, and it's from 1944. So a lot of these wartime ones, as I said, the staples were just not doing it. Either they were 1 staple or like a little bit wimpy staples that they would use during the war. Just, I guess, the war effort, they had to save staples. You know, everything they could do to help the war effort. Okay. Next question comes from K. Munin. What are the most important changes you feel the comic book related movies and TV shows have to make in order to improve? Do you feel it's time for superhero movies to take a break after so many years? So this answer might kind of be good and bad in a way. If if we're trying to appeal to the broad audience, maybe the superhero movies should take a break for 5 to 10 years, like really just take a break for many years. If that's what the goal is, to really appeal to a broad audience. And the reason I say that is what we've had in the last 5 years is just one bad movie after another. And I think a lot of people now associate all those bad things with the superhero movies in general. So I think that in order to sort of cleanse people's palates of superhero movies in the broader audience field, that hiatus might be necessary. However, I personally would love to see more superhero movies, and actually for them to be a little bit more prolific about creating superhero movies. However, what they have to do, and this is a fundamental flaw with Hollywood in general, is they have to, one, trust their directors, two, trust their writers, and don't, get writers that know the actual comics. Like it sounds like a small thing, but it's actually a huge thing. They the reason the movies have sucked for the last 5 years is the writers themselves don't know the material, the source material. It's insane, but they don't. And they actually bragged about it when they were interviewing a lot of these directors and creators. They didn't know their own source material. It was insulting to the comics themselves. So, and the other thing, so when I say that, it really gets down to what is happening right now with a lot of movies. And the reason why they're failing is they're still making big money. They'll make like 200-300 million or more. Even the ones that we say, oh, those are failures, are making that much money in terms of box office revenue. That's not enough to break even, though. So the big problem that they're having, and the reason superhero movies are failing so much, is they cost so much to make. So if you want to create a blockbuster superhero movie, you're going to spend anywhere from 200 to 300 million. Well, the reason they're spending so much on those movies is, well, they don't trust the writers, they don't trust the directors, they don't do all this stuff, and what they're doing is they're doing these screeners where they will sort of show it to an audience, and the audience will go, I don't like, it'll be this kind of thing, and then they'll reshoot, they'll fix things, so what happens is you get a bad movie that's created in the first place because, as I said, the writers don't know what they're doing. They're not familiar with the content. They're trying to put in whatever political message that they want to get in there, and you get sort of subpar content being created in the first place. Then the directors aren't really trusted either, and you get like even the directors are trying to make it work, but a lot of the time, they're being shot down by committee, and then rewrites and reshoots and all that kind of costs a lot of money to do, and it just takes a budget of 100 million, makes it 200 or 300 million. So that is a big problem. So you got to get that cost down. That cost has to go way down. They should be making movies, and this might sound crazy because we think of how much they cost to make, but they should be making movies for around 50 million. Okay, that's where they got to get them down to. And that's like a whole bunch of fat that has to be trimmed in terms of the production of these movies. Now you think, oh, but the quality is going to suffer if they do that. Well, no. It's because the way the process is being done that they're spending way more than they need to. So when you spend 50 million on a movie, you're probably going to spend another like 50 on promoting it and stuff. So when you get into that range, you're now looking at basically a $100 production to get it out there in the theaters and make it successful. Well, at 100 million, these $200 to $300 million box offices make sense, and they can actually make a profit. Now, that's all about scaling back, scaling back in terms of all the production. And if they can do that, I think they could get the thing going again. So that's, you know, one thing. The weird thing is, like, I say this where, like, I'd even talk about what the story should be. And the reason I didn't mention that is it's kind of obvious. The story should be whatever was in the comics that were the ones that people liked. What are the stories that people liked? Well, tell those stories. I mean, you got 80 years worth of stories that have been told, and some were more popular than others. Tell the popular stories. It's really that basic. It's really there's no rocket science. There's no committee that's required. You can actually even ask collectors, what are your favorite stories? And you'll hear the same thing over and over again. It's so obvious that it doesn't need to be said. So that's really what I see them is needing to do. Will they do it? Probably not. Probably not. But that's Hollywood. They just are silly. So yeah. Okay, so next question comes from Michael Fedison, and wondering if you have any targets that are undervalued at the moment. That is, which genres, for example, Bronze Age horror, Silver Age romance, characters, or even single issues, do you think are particularly good investments, and the kind of thing right now that is a bit undervalued but might rise in value significantly in 10 to 15 years? Okay, so one of the things that happened, we had COVID, right? That from 2020 to 2022, which were just crazy years, where we have sort of had this market that was basically 10x. It just had gone up through the roof and was very unrealistic market. It was just hyper inflated. And then we had the subsequent 2 years after that, to almost 3 years now, with being 2025, where that market has not only corrected, but overcorrected. Okay? So what we have is books now that are below what they were selling for back in 2015, like 10 years ago, which is insane. So they're way below where they should be. Add on to that, that's dollar for dollar. They're actually cheaper now than they were in 2015. That's incredibly insane. Traditionally comics have that sort of standard slope. It goes up slowly over time. And that is a realistic slope. It's not that millions of people have left the hobby. The hobby is the hobby. It's still a strong hobby. But what has happened is people have kind of gotten paranoid and overly just given up on their books. Like they were like, oh, I got to cut my losses, and they're selling them under what they should sell for. Another thing that people haven't even thought of at all. So we're talking dollar for dollar that they're selling for the same as 2015 prices. Well, in that same 10 years, there's been at least 40% inflation. So there's been a lot of inflation that's happened, especially in the last 4 years. A lot of inflation has happened. And when you say that they're dollar for dollar, well, that means that they're probably about 40% under what they should be. And that's if they just maintain inflationary prices. Like, it just, based on, the book being this much in 2015, it should be, if it didn't go up or didn't go anywhere, just based on inflation, it should be this price. So with all those considered, we're looking at Bronze Age, Silver Age, Copper Age, modern books being, for the most part, very undervalued. Golden Age has been strong since COVID. So I think actually Golden Age, which is what I'm collecting right now, might be a little bit overinflated. So that's a kind of hot take for somebody that collects gold, and it's one of those things. I do actually see the prices being a bit too high in Golden. But historically, Golden has been a little bit underrated and undervalued, but now it's the other way around. Now we have a situation where silver and bronze and all those ones are the ones that are underrated and undervalued. And I think there will be a shift probably in the next 10 to 15 years to correct all this like goofiness, where those books regain their value. So right now it's a good time to buy. And especially if you're buying those blue chip books, the blue chip books were the ones that got hit the hardest. So you're looking at your Silver Age keys, your Bronze Age keys. Those books were hit the hardest, and they're the ones you should be picking up if you really want to pick investment books. Blue chip ones that have were the ones that went up the highest during COVID are the ones to pick up now. I know it sounds crazy because they went up high and they've since fallen the most, right? So those are the ones you really want to look at. What I always recommend is let the trend be your friend. Look at the trend lines for those books. If they're way below the trend line, unless there's like something like a good example of one not to take this advice on would be something like what's this, like New Gods or something like that, like not New Gods, but the one with yeah, the Gods ones, what's it called? New Gods, I guess it's New Gods. Where they had gone kind of crazily, they had a bad movie, they didn't do so well. Not New Gods, but it's another title, I'm talking about, where it went to like 20-30x, and then it's gone below its previous prices. There's some value there you can get, but yeah. My point is, look for ones that are below the trend lines. Look back to 2015 in terms of that trend line. So the reason I'm saying go back to that far back is anything where it's below the 2015 price, where in 2015 you have sort of like a kind of comic boom in a way, where prices in 2015 were actually pretty strong because people were excited about the movies. That was actually a pretty popular time for movies. So that's kind of a good point as a reference point to where people could be again in, say, 10 to 15 years from now. So I think that's a good point, rather than like 2019, because 2019 is a little bit of a low point and it might not be that accurate. Okay, so I recommend look at the 2015 price. If it's lower than the 2015 price in terms of what it's selling for, definitely a good buy. Definitely a good buy. Okay, so, and there's a lot of movies that came out that kind of ruined things, so, and all that speculation would be kind of wiped out by going early enough in history for those prices. So that's another reason. Okay, and I'll remember the name of that title. Wow. Wow, that is really annoying. Okay, trying to remember the name of that book. Okay, next question comes from Matt Likes Comics. Who would you like to see play Lady Luck, Blonde Phantom, Sun Girl, Miss Fury, if they were to be on screen? Okay, Lady Luck, I was thinking Chloe Grace Moretz. She's the one that played the hit girl in Kick-Ass. She actually, she's grown up and her face is more narrow now. She kind of looks like she could play the part. She's blonde, kind of has the look. She's kind of has that more classy, like golden age look. I think she would kind of work for Lady Luck. Blonde Phantom, I think Taylor Swift, they've been talking about her being Blonde Phantom. I think she would actually be a good Blonde Phantom. She kind of has that tall girl, blonde hair look to her. Sun Girl, another blonde. I was thinking Sydney Sweeney. I think that'd be an interesting choice, just because she's pretty. That's the only reason. And then we got Miss Fury. Now this one, I'm not sure the actress that I'm picking is quite right. Maybe a little too old now, but Natalie Portman. I think she would be a good Miss Fury. So those would be the ones that I would choose. I don't know. Tell me in the comments below who you would choose for those characters. The actors for those characters. And Archivist Adrift wrote, at the attempt at brevity, because he asked me like these really long questions, like usually like a full page, like really long questions. At the attempt at brevity, who is the worst sidekick and why is it Robin? Well, I don't think it's Robin, personally. I like Robin as a sidekick. He is like the quintessential sidekick. He's the one that, will get into bondage or whatever it is. Like, they'll capture him. He'll need to be rescued. He can fight at the same time, though. He does help. He usually acts as a meat shield for Batman, which is useful. So Robin is not that bad of a sidekick. He's useful, at least. Now, the ones that I was thinking would be Snapper Carr, probably the worst sidekick of all times because he's incomprehensible, and he was sort of a mascot for the Justice League of America, and just an annoying character. So Snapper Carr. But one step worse than Snapper Carr is probably Miracle Kid. Now, if you've read the Miracle Man series, it's quite cool, actually. It's a good series. Really well done. Miracle Kid basically is the sidekick to Miracle Man, and years pass, and Miracle Kid becomes bitter and crazy, and basically genocidal. He's like this super evil character. So I think that is worse than, some of these characters that are a little bit goofy and not really useful. To have a character that's actually like a bad guy and becomes a bad guy, I think that makes him the worst sidekick, just because he's, potentially going to get you killed. So yeah. So Miracle Kid would be what I think is the worst sidekick of all. So those are answers for this week. And someday I'll remember the name of that stupid book. What am I thinking? Why can't I remember it? I even have it. I want to say New Gods, but it's not New Gods. It's Marvel. New Gods is DC. So yeah, but man, that's how bad the movie was. It's made me blank on the name of the movie, the character, so of the comics, and it was like so big. That comic, it went from being $2,000 to like $100. So that's not one I would recommend buying right now. But yeah, I'm gonna drive myself nuts. I'll remember it soon. Once I press stop on this video, I'll remember it. It's like one of those things. You remember it only after it's not useful anymore. So yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I babble too much. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.